The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, October 16th, Wednesday, October 17th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North on top of the Smoky Mountains of central British Columbia, and we're not talking forest fires, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio, and we welcome you to tonight's show. You want to listen to our archives, guess what? They are free for you at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our new coming Spaced Out Radio store very soon, and you can read up on the encounter online as well as so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Ensuho. Sebastian Martin brings high-quality messages to the masses. Go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the Ensuho banner, and subscribe to the channel today. First off, if all of our American friends look north right now and they see a big puff of stinky smoke coming from Canada, that's because at midnight tonight, and it's already past that in Ontario and East, the legalization of marijuana has arrived. And it's going to be likely a giant party up here, except for those of us who are working, as Canada joins Uruguay as the only countries in the world where the hippie lettuce is now fully legal. We'll get to more on that in the encounter later on in the show. But first, we are going to get into some Bigfoot talk tonight, as we are joined by Daryl Owen and Russell Stater from Nor-Cal Squatchers. And yes, we already had the talk. And if you see me right now, I'm using my fingers as quotation marks. The talk about what I think of the word Squatch. These guys actually agree with me. They're really cool. But nonetheless, ever since the famed Patterson-Gimlin film from Bluff Creek, California, the northern part of the state has been inundated with researchers looking for that next piece of conclusive evidence that Bigfoot exists. In 1992, Daryl actually filmed a Sasquatch about 30 feet in front of him. He's thoroughly convinced that the reigning hide-and-seek champion is real. And once again, at the bottom of hour number 3, Olaf Phillips from Paranoia Magazine will be with us for the latest edition of The Encounter. Mr. Daryl Owen, Mr. Russell Stater from Nor-Cal Squatchers. Gentlemen, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Thank you to everybody. Thank you.
Very excited, guys, because I got to tell you, I love Bigfoot. There's something about this creature that I absolutely adore. If I saw one again, I would want to run up to it and give it a big hug. It might hurt me, but I'm willing to take that chance. Daryl, let's start with you on this one. When did you start believing in this Bigfoot? Tell us about your story and how you got involved with this field.
Well, I lived in Las Vegas, Nevada, and my family had moved up north to Crescent City, and I was invited to move up there. I decided I would take my family and move to Crescent City, and we found a home in Klamath. And once we arrived in Klamath, we're city folk. Got to know the neighbors well, got to know everybody around the neighborhood. Never believed in Bigfoot until that one day that my son came home with his friend and said, "Dad, we just saw a big hairy man out in the trees shaking a branch at us, and it smelled terrible." So we kind of laughed at him a little bit. You know how city folk are. We didn't believe in all of this stuff, and I didn't believe in Bigfoot at all, really, until that day. And it just started on that very moment. I went out and I had my son show me where it was at. And from that moment on, I started seeing footprints within the creek bed. And I was not sure if they were just playing around or a trick. So I came back to the house. I told my partner at the time and talked to my neighbor and decided I would call the police. So I called the police department, and the police department told me that it's best that we just kind of keep it quiet and don't worry about things, that these are things that happen quite often. They're not going to send out an officer for a report like that. Well, it was heard by one of the reporters from the Del Norte Triplicate, which is a newspaper there in town. And then it all broke loose. The newspaper showed up in Klamath, started knocking on doors, trying to find out where I lived. Finally found out where I lived. Steve Silkey, who was the reporter at the time, asked me to take him out. So I took him out, and he took some pictures. We counted 34 footprints total. And he asked me if I was a believer at the time, and I said no, I was not a believer. And he started telling me about Willow Creek, the Patterson-Gimlin film, Patty. And then I started thinking, well, maybe the boys saw this, and I shouldn't question them. So I went next door. We went back to our house, and I went to the neighbors, and I asked the neighbors if this is something that is quite common around there. And they started telling me it's best to just be quiet, don't tell anybody, leave it alone. It's here all the time. Well, unfortunately, I had already called the police department. It had already gone to the AP. I started getting phone calls. I started getting people coming to the house. So I really didn't know what to do at the time. So I kind of just closed ourselves off in our house, and we didn't talk to anybody for about a day and a half, maybe 2 days. I wasn't sure what we should do, what we were going to do. And I started getting more phone calls from other people, and got a phone call from someone named Al Hodgson. Well, I didn't know who Al Hodgson was at the time, and he explained who he was, that he lived in Willow Creek, and he wanted to come up and take a look and see what had gone on. Well, I didn't know who he was. I didn't really know who to trust. I didn't trust anybody. And once I got there, once the media went away, the papers went away, the next day it hit the newspapers, and my neighbors were absolutely just, it was the worst experience of a lifetime. Then at the same time, I was also having people calling me, and I didn't know who to bring in to help me, being somebody that knew absolutely nothing, didn't know how to cast anything, didn't know how to do any kind of investigation whatsoever. I started calling people and begging people to show up, and thank God for Al Hodgson, who showed up. He told me to go out and go to the nearest market, which was right down the road, and I bought all of their plaster of Paris. And he took me out in the field, and he looked at the footprints, and he said, those are absolutely Bigfoot prints. He said, this is something that's been around here for a long time. He described his sightings at Willow Creek and the Patterson-Gimlin film, explained to me how to cast them. He did all of the castings. So while we were doing the castings, he said, this is not going to be the end of this. I remember him telling us all that this won't be the end of it. It'll go on for a couple of days, possibly weeks. So we got back to the house. We let the prints dry. And there was a couple more cars that showed up. And one of the cars happened to be Bob Gimlin. And Al had got a hold of Bob Gimlin, and he had come to the house, talked to us about him. We took him out in the field. He agreed with that's what they were. And he said that they're Bigfoot are all through these area of hills, from Klamath, Willow Creek, Eureka, Arcata, all through those areas of the redwoods. And they kind of took me under their wing, and Al Hodgson taught me everything that I could basically learn and use at the time as a researcher. So I kept my kids home from school. They were getting teased really bad because it did go to the newspaper, and the newspaper travels fast around there. Kept my kids home from school. We pulled all of the prints up the following day. Al came out, helped me pick them all up, and he described to me how, since it's been down so low, that we could do a bait trap. And I was not familiar with that term. A bait trap is where you dig a hole in the ground and you put sand around the hole, and whatever creature is out there, you have to put whatever bait was in the hole. And at the time, I put rhesus pieces in the bottom of the hole. The following evening, we went back out and checked the bait trap, and there was a footprint and a handprint there. So Al showed me how to cast the handprint and the footprint of that specific bait trap. So the creature walked up to it, stepped on it, put a knee in it, put a hand down in the sand, reached down in the hole, picked up the candy, stood up, and walked away, and I had my first print and handprint that go together that matched the same creature.
Wow.
Which I was like just completely flabbergasted. Al was flabbergasted. He was like, this is a really good thing to have. I mean, there's not a whole lot of these. These are a special thing. So Al stayed with us for 3 days. Bob Gimlin only stayed a day with us, a whole period of a day. And then the third day, I was introduced to Craig Carpenter, who was a Mohawk mystic. He came to the house, and he wanted to see. Now, I didn't know where Craig came from. It was kind of a mysterious thing where Craig came from. Kind of a scary man. If you describe, I mean, he was really an Indian. I mean, you know, you see the Indians in the movies. I really thought he was going to be a bad guy here. And he told us, he brought us a piece of corn, a black piece of corn, and this was a gift. And he wanted to go out and see where it was at. And we took him out and showed him everything. And he was telling us while we're out there that Bigfoot is a creature that can come and go as it pleases, can disappear. It's very supernatural. That hunters, if they shoot them or kill them, try to kill them, they will never get them. He said that they are what they call the great creator. And I didn't understand at the time what he meant by that, which now I do, but the great creator was in their land or their beliefs that Bigfoot is the boss of the mountains, and they have been there for hundreds of years, and we are just privileged to see them. Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I believe that Bigfoot is a living, breathing, upright, walking creature.
I don't blame you. I think that too.
I stand firm on that belief. And then on the fourth day, I got a call from a gentleman named Scott Harriet, who decided he wanted to come up. He was coming in from Los Angeles. Very nice man. Came in. I said, no problem. He brought somebody else in. And forgive me, I'm not sure of the name. I know the gentleman's name was Don. And I took him up across the bed. I showed him all the prints. I showed him all the casted prints. And Kim and Al seemed to have known each other. They somehow had talked to each other at one point in time. And Al confirmed that, you know, these were the prints that were in the ground. These are the real thing. And at the same time, we pulled the handprint. And when we pulled the handprint, Al said, this is a one-of-a-kind kind of thing. That this is the handprint itself, I would say, for myself, is the top of anything that I have casted in the many years that I've been doing this. So Scott decided to stay. He stayed with he stayed in our home. And we went up the hill a couple of times. We didn't go as far as we wanted to go, but we went up quite a ways. Steve Silke and his wife came back the evening, I would say about a week later, decided that they were going to be out there during the nighttime. They were going to want to go out and be there at night, because on day 4, when Scott got there, we were hearing a very strange hoop from one side of the mountain of the canyon to the other side. And it was a strange laugh. I thought maybe it was an owl or maybe a dog. I mean, you have to remember I was a city folk kind of guy, so I didn't really understand the nature part of it. So Steve Silkey, his wife, Scott Harriet, and myself, we all decided that we were going to cross the creek bed at night and go out and record these hoops and hollers. So we went out, and Scott Harriet and Steve Silkey decided to go farther up in the bushes than I wanted to go. I'm going to be honest with you, and be honest with your listeners. I was pretty frightened at the time. Just the thought and the imagine of something that my son described that was 7 feet tall and brown and big and hairy and looked like a gorilla. I wasn't able to go far enough with them. So I stayed with Steve Silkey's wife, and we let Steve and Scott go forward. Well, the howls started from the canyon walls back and forth. And we knew that Steve and Scott had stopped. But just ahead of us, and not too far, Steve Silkey's wife and myself, just not too far from us, we could hear something traveling through the bushes. And I couldn't tell you if it was bipedal, if it was 4-legged or 10-legged, I don't know. But I will tell you that it scared us bad enough that we went back to the house and left Steve Silkey and Scott out in the bushes. So they got back there, and they had heard the howls. And Steve Silkey had a Sony DAT machine, kind of an older one, a parabolic mic, and he had recorded the howls for us. And those are my howls. I have had them for several years. And they asked if they could come back out. They stayed there till just about dawn with us. And then they asked if they could come back out. We said, no problem. But Scott Harriet and I decided that we would get some sleep, and the following day, we decided that we were going to go up the hill, and we were going to go up as far as we could. So we decided to follow the tracks, the original tracks that were casted, and follow the trail that went up the mountain. Now, this mountain is, I don't know, maybe the beginning of the bottom of the hill going up is probably 2,000 or 3,000 yards, cross the creek bed, and then the mountain starts. So we decided that we were going to, like I said, follow the trail where the actual footprints went up across the bed and started up. Winding our way through there, it was pretty, the trees were very dense. It was a very forested area. It wasn't easy to get through. We were fighting with berry bushes and thick trees, and we kind of talking going up the hill, kind of laughing and giggling that we'd see a bear or any kind of animals, but we never saw anything. We got to about 300 feet from the top of the mountain, and there's a very large tree, and it's a dried up tree at the very top of the hill. Well, just below that area, there was some trees that were knocked over, large trees. Now, I'm not talking about little trees. I'm talking large trees. And we got up to about 25 feet from a large hole in a log. And I asked Scott, I said, do you want to go up and around? And he goes, no, wait. He goes, wait. And I said, what? He goes, look right there. And he started cussing. And about every other word was the F word. And he said, there's eyes looking at us from the hole. And there was 2 red giant eyes inside this hole, moving left and right real slow, watching us, and every time we would move, it would follow us. So I kind of backed up a little bit, and I told Scott, I said, I'm going to go up to the right side, and I'm going to try to come around and look down from above and see if I can see something from his right would be pointing back towards the left. I got about 20 feet from Scott and stood up on a flat area, almost like a rock. And about 25, 30 feet from me, with a left arm on a tree, his head and his left leg, I could see completely with my camcorder. And it was beige. It was about 8 feet tall. I would say probably close to 400 pounds. And it was looking back and forth, swaying its head back and forth, looking down inside the log, looking over at me, looking back over at the log, and I started filming it. And that's when I put my finger up there and I said, it's right here. I can see it. It's right here. Now, right at that moment in time, now I've never seen, I've seen things out of the ordinary, but I've never seen something that really scared me like this scared me. But I'm standing there and I'm filming this Bigfoot, this beige-looking creature standing there looking at us, looking at whatever's in the log. And I'll be honest, assumption is that we think it might have been a female and a baby in the log.
Yeah.
And the last part of it, and the worst part for me, which is still seared and burned in my mind, is that at the last look, it lowered its head, and it turned to its left, and it looked across at me under its brow, almost like if you come one more step, you're in a lot of trouble. Well, after 29 seconds of holding a camcorder and filming it, and it looked at me, I was completely paralyzed. I dropped the camera. I don't tell a lot of people this, but I'm about to tell 150,000 people this. I peed my pants. I literally lost complete control and functions of everything. My legs got weak. I was unable to move. And I couldn't describe the fear factor part of it. I felt almost immobilized, like something had a grip on me. And I stood there for probably close to a minute. I will give it a minute. And I looked over at Scott, and Scott was already headed down the hill. He was already moving. So I reached over and grabbed the camera. I moved as fast and slow as possible, if you know what I mean. I grabbed the camera without looking back and jumped down, and we headed down the hill. Now, as we started down the hill, we could hear something behind us moving within the brush behind us. What took us 3 hours to get up the mountain took us 20 minutes to get down the hill. So we were butt sliding. We were doing anything we could to get down the hill, and it was nonstop. We got back to the house, and I was in complete shock. I was pretty dirty because I was wet. Got in the house, and I remember sitting across from the dinner table with Scott, and he's going, I can't believe what we just saw. And I said, I can't believe what we just saw. And I said, what do we do now? And first thing that popped into his head was, we got to get a news crew out here. And because I was new in this field and didn't really know how to go forward and get help and all this stuff, Scott said, I will take over. And he got a hold of A&E's Ancient Mysteries. A&E decided that they were going to do a story. It's called A&E's Ancient Mysteries Bigfoot, hosted by Leonard Nimoy. And that our story is in that program. And at the same time, A&E's Ancient Mysteries took hair that we had found up there and was given to a professor, Sterling Burnell, out of Concord, and the hair did not come back as primate or chimpanzee. I'm sorry, primate or human, but it was distinguishable from both of those, and it wasn't any a dog or cow or anything like that.
Weird. I'm going to pause you. I'm going to pause you right there because I want to get Russell Stater in here. And Russell, this is an amazing story, and obviously you can hear Daryl's emotion in the story as he's telling this, but we got to get you in here as well. So when did you join Nor-Cal Squatchers, and why did you have an affinity for searching for Bigfoot?
Yeah, so kind of Nor-Cal Squatchers started actually between the two of us, me and Daryl. So me and Daryl, I'm actually engaged to Daryl's daughter. So that's kind of how we interacted with one another.
Hold on. This is a whole new thing here. Daryl, do you have weaponry available in case this young man treats the daughter wrong?
No, I love Russell. I trust him.
Oh. Well, I got your back, Daryl. As a father of daughters, I have your back on this one.
All right, sir.
You stay straight and narrow, Mr. Russell.
I'm with you, absolutely.
All
Don't
right.
worry. She says so. But yeah, so I've kind of always had a fascination, though, with Bigfoot. Ever since I was younger, I've gone on several camping trips with my family. I was an Indian guide, Boy Scouts, so again, many outdoor nature expeditions and camping trips when I was younger, and I've just always kind of had a fascination and really a passion for the outdoors. So as I kind of got a little bit older and obviously, started to learn about Bigfoot by just watching documentaries and, hearing people talk about him, I became interested, what is this creature really about? And it wasn't until, honestly, probably my middle 20s when I really started to figure out that there really is something here. There's just too much evidence out there, in my opinion. There's too much of a history out there. So I started kind of deciding that I wanted to go out and look and hunt and find Bigfoot, find more evidence and learn about him. And, of course, during this time, I'm dating the daughter of someone that actually had a sighting. So that's actually seen him in person, been, within X amount of feet from one. So we started talking, and Daryl can elaborate, but it was kind of, Daryl, I don't want to say he was on a hiatus, but he hadn't been involved in the scenes for quite a few years, and that was almost intentional because of backlash. So it was a big decision to say, okay, do we want to get together and actually combine forces and start this group? And May of 2016, pretty much almost 2 years ago, we did. And we kind of describe ourselves as 50-50. And what I mean by that is I'm a tech guy. I'm actually in IT for a living. Along with my passion for outdoors, I've always been into technology. So I am a firm believer in what's going to really bring the evidence to light and what's really going to change the scientific community is going to be the use of technology. So I am a big believer in using, obviously, technology then when we go out into the field, and that's what I bring with me. I've researched tons of gadgets, tons of gizmos, things that obviously civilians can get their hands on, and not someone that's a millionaire, unfortunately, but and have purchased a lot of equipment that can help bring evidence to the world. And Daryl has actual experience and has had years of working with individuals and knows people and knows how to cast prints and knows, number one, what to even look for when it does come to prints. So it was a good combination that we kind of decided at the time that, between his past experiences with his knowledge of tracking and the people that he knows, and then with my, we'd say maybe younger generation, but with my technology aspect, my background, that, we combined and started Nor-Cal, and it's just been a wild ride since then.
Interesting. It's very interesting how it turned into, you were going out on this on your own, Russell, and then all of a sudden it's turned into a family affair now.
Yeah, that's it exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, what better is it than one family that's had an in-person sighting? I mean, you can't beat that. So.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, I mean, that's kind of cool how things are going. So, when you first heard Daryl's story about what happened to him in 1992, what were you thinking as you were about to get into this field? Because, I mean, you could just hear us hearing it for the first time here. You could hear the emotion in his face that, I mean, this almost traumatized him.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's crazy about it, too, is that I actually first learned about it by watching the A&E show, by actually watching the production that A&E put on of his sighting. So when you watch it, you see the footage, and it's interesting footage that he has. It really is. It's compelling, but there's something definitely, it's. But I didn't hear the whole story from him. I never actually sat down and said, Daryl, tell me your side of it. Tell me actually, everything you guys just heard, tell me that story. So for years, I just went based off of the A&E, whatever was kind of publicized. And even though that was such good evidence alone, in my opinion, his testimony of it, his recount, his story of it is what basically sold me. It is genuine. It is, it is what a human emotion would experience. And then Daryl can also go into this as well, but just the outcry and the backlash that really happened afterwards as well, that changed his life almost as much, if not more, than the actual sighting itself. And those are the things that, the TV doesn't say. They don't put that out there. So you never really know until hand. So to be honest, I had actually thought that, okay, here's my father-in-law, my future father-in-law on the Discovery Channel, or on A&E, excuse me, and he's going over his sighting and has, some really good footage, but I haven't heard anything about this in X amount of years. And even now that I'm, dating his daughter, I still really haven't heard him mention Bigfoot or, I want to go out there and do this. And it wasn't until, like I said, I started to get more curious. I had seen more and more evidence, and it kind of dawned on me that his experience is really something unique. It's in my opinion, definitely one of the top evidences, one of the top experiences that, people have reported. And that's why I said, why am I investigating this when, he's a phone call away? And, so I talked to him, and finally, he opened up and explained everything that happened in the early 90s and everything around this sighting and experience. And that's when it really hit me. Wow, number one, I was so close to this for so long, and I wish I would have known. We would have started this organization years ago. But, it really drew me into it and wanted me to get involved with him and start this.
And Daryl, we bring you back in here because I think this is kind of important. I mean, now that you are public about your story, and you have been since 1992, but let's face it, it wasn't the most perfect experience that you were hoping. There was a lot of ridicule and a lot of harassment that kind of went along with that. Can you maybe detail some of the darker side of what happened once you went public with your video and with what went on with the teasing that was going around?
Sure. Well, once the sighting went to the AP, and they found out a TV crew was coming. The TV crew had finished filming. The neighbors decided that they were going to, I'm trying to think of a word. I want to say shun. Our neighbors became completely hostile towards us. I had visitors from the Hoopa and the Tolowa Indian tribes that came to the house and told me to let Bigfoot alone. Don't chase it. You'll never catch it. Leave it alone. It's bad luck. The Wopekamau is not for you. And we would, it got so serious that we would actually wake up in the morning and go out, and somebody had wrote hoax on our garage door. And at one point in time, I actually had an Indian and I say Indian, should I say Native American,
Native American
sitting in our
please.
driveway. Thank you, sir. Native American sitting in our driveway, waiting for us to take the kids to school or come out of the house. And it was baffling because they almost made it like it was a ritual that we had reported this. They wanted nobody to talk about it. We ended up, through a period of 30 days, we lost our home through all of the ridicule, and we just got to the point where we had to move. And this is kind of bizarre because the Native Americans told us, you're going to have really bad luck. If you keep this going, you're going to have terrible luck. And within that 30-day period of leaving and moving, I ended up getting divorced because there was so much ridicule from people in the town, and to the town, we moved to Crescent City. There was even more up there because that's where the actual paper was. The ridicule got so bad, I ended up getting divorced. My kids had to go into homeschool, and then I ended up moving away, and I never brought Bigfoot up again. I actually just became, people would recognize me sometimes, and you're Daryl Owen, you're on A&E, so yeah, that's me. Well, let's talk about that. Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I really don't want to talk about it. And I believe there's bad luck that follows you. I kind of had that experience, but I think the bad luck is more of what the people bring. The people are cruel. People are cruel when it comes to mysterious things. We ended up having a really bad experience afterwards, and I just stopped doing anything. I didn't search for Bigfoot. I didn't do any kind of Bigfooting at all. I gave away the majority of my footprints to people. I didn't want anything to do with it anymore because I felt like it was part of the bad luck situation. And I just stopped doing everything. And when I met Russell, when Karen and Russell got together, and I met Russell, we had sit down and we had talked about it. I kind of described what Russell told you, that we were getting ready to, we'd like to try to start this back up. And my first thing to Russell was, look, we can't do this. This is not going to happen. This is bad luck. There's bad karma in this. I'm proof that there was karma. I mean, the newspapers were even publishing stories of what people were doing to my home. And the neighbors, we would leave the house, and the neighbors would call the police on us and tell them that my daughter wasn't in a car seat in the car, and they'd pull us over. I mean, it got so frequently that they would just pass us by and let us go, or they'd pull us over and say, I'm just checking because somebody called. So in my eyes, the ridiculing has never really stopped. There's still people out there that don't believe, that would rather cause some kind of issue. Well, I don't believe in them. You guys are crazy. You're nutty. What kind of dope are you on? Things like that. So the ridiculing doesn't really stop. But this is now the next generation for me. With Russell taking over, Russell is level-headed. He's got a backbone. He doesn't allow people to push him around. He knows what his beliefs are, and I gotta stand with him for that. And we've had people talk, and I'm not afraid now anymore to come forward and say, this is what we've done, and this is what I did, and this is how it's going to happen. And we go out in the field, and like Russell said, Dave, he's technology. He's drones and game cameras and night vision goggles and things like that. I'm boots on the ground. I would rather jump out of the car, throw on a backpack, and go out in the field. Either way, both ways, we've been very good at finding footprints and things like that. So both ways work, but there's still always that ridicule out there.
Wow. Do you feel, though, that you have some sort of vindication considering the popularity of Sasquatch now with the television shows, with radio programs, with everybody seeming to wanting to jump on board, from advertisements like Jack Link's beef jerky or something along those lines, that everybody seems to want to be a part of the Bigfoot phenomena now?
Well, yeah, okay, I'm trying to say this okay. The TV shows don't do real researchers justice. The TV shows are exactly what they are. They're for ratings. They don't teach you the specifics, the in and outs of what you need to do. You don't go on a TV show and walk a quarter of a mile and scream in the bushes and hear something come back or waste a half an hour of your time. Now, I'm not a big TV fan of the Bigfoot shows. I am not, and I won't give names, but I am not a big fan of them. I think for real researchers, and any researcher that is good at their job, at what they do in researching, you have to go out in the field. You have to take your time. You can't go out and spend an hour out there. You got to learn. You have got to learn what there is in tracking, in evidence collection, the in and outs of Bigfooting. That's just how it is. And I don't think the TV shows are going to teach the next generation what we're doing. I honestly don't. That's why Russell and I, when we made Nor-Cal, our first thing is that we do it for education-wise. We're in it for the education. And we want to teach the educational wise of it.
Mm-hmm. Russell, I want to bring you in here because you are more of the tech guy with everything. But when you are looking at this and you see what your future father-in-law has gone through with the ridicule and everything, how does that make you feel, knowing what he knows, knowing what you guys have found for evidence and what you're doing in order to promote the legend of Sasquatch and try and bring some resolution to finding a solution?
Yeah, I think it really goes to kind of the point that you made earlier, Dave, about Sasquatch in general and Bigfoot is really kitschy nowadays. It really is, and it's become more popular. And I think it's a kind of negative to some point. Like you said, it's brought in some really bad TV shows and some misinformation, and to a large audience, it's made it almost even more of a joke than it's ever been to some people. But on the flip side of that, it is attention, and it is getting the name out there, and it is, kind of opening people's eyes and saying, oh, okay, well, maybe again, there is something to this, and maybe I should do some actual research or look into the history of the past. So when it comes to the ridicule that Daryl faced, back in the day, I don't think it's there as bad as it used to be. I really don't. I've talked to lots of people and have said, yeah, I go out looking for Bigfoot. I'm a Bigfoot researcher. And you'll get the laughs, you'll get the, oh, that's interesting, and the people that kind of, roll their eyes and think, whatever, and walk away. But to be honest, more times not, I have people actually asking me questions. Really, what have you seen? What have you experienced? Why do you do this? And I'll explain to them, and I'll share them kind of what got me involved, and evidence that not only I've seen, but that I've seen on the internet, and other people have told me, and you can actually kind of see it in their eyes, changing their perspective of it. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about Bigfoot right now And this is something that me and Daryl will still encounter to this day, is that when you say, I'm a Bigfoot researcher, somebody will go and say, so you really think there's one guy running around out there, and that's who everyone is seeing is Bigfoot? And, you know, it's like, no, I don't think there's just one of these guys that, you know, is out there and he's been roaming around for the past 1,000 years. I think, you know, it's got to be a species, and it's got to be, you know, obviously a limited number of species or a limited number of them, but I don't believe it's just one guy running around out there and that's who everyone's trying to find and that's, you know, what they're seeing. So it's getting that point across to people, and then, you know, really got to hit them with just kind of some key facts that I always think people, it almost changes their minds instantly. You know, one of the biggest things is that, you know, everyone always says, well, you know, we see these things. How come you haven't seen them yet still with game cam and technology? And how come I can't just walk into the woods and see one? Well, that's basically life's mission, you know, Sasquatches in general.
Well, I can tell you this. I'm going to interject there for a second. I spend a lot of time in the bush up here. I am surrounded by thick forest, and I can tell you more times than not, I would say, put it this way, out of the last 10 times I have been in the bush, and I got a couple of friends in the chat room who can attest to this, we haven't seen any bears, we haven't seen any moose, we haven't seen any deer, we haven't seen anything. No wolves, no cougars, nothing. Animals are great camouflaged artists, and I'm not saying that Bigfoot is an animal, because I tend to believe I'm more on the woo-woo, the peak woo side of things, where I think there is something very supernatural about this creature. But for people to be naive enough, Russell, to say, well, how come I don't go in the forest and they're not trouncing around like birds flying up in the trees?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, everyone compares them a lot of times to bears. You know, okay, it's a misidentification to a bear, or that's a bear print that you're seeing. But just the odds of someone going into the bush and seeing a bear is almost astronomical too. You know, so if you got to figure, okay, well, let's just throw a number that there's 100 to 1 bears, you know, to Sasquatches. So you're more likely to see 100 bears on one trip than you are to see a Sasquatch. Well, obviously you're not going to see one unless you know where to go. Good idea. Or let's face it, you get really lucky, you know?
Oh, very true. Very true. You just never know, and that's why you got to keep your eyes open. Like, I'm going out in the forest tomorrow, and the chances of us seeing something, even though we're hopeful, are slim to none. But that's just the way it is. You just never know when you're going to encounter one of these creatures, Daryl.
I'm with you on that one. Because I tell you, we've gone out many times and have seen absolutely nothing, but we've seen evidence in the ground and collected hair and heard them, but we've never seen one. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah,
we just went out here just a few weeks ago, and there were prints in the ground. I mean, because it's still pretty dry out here. This is going to be our busy season down here because the rain is starting. So it's going to start ramping up. But you're like you just said, it's 101 chance of seeing something. We've gone out many times and never seen anything. So,
yeah, I mean, and that's just the way it is. And I think that's the problem. I mean, if we're dealing with a creature substitute here, Russell, as we got about 2 minutes here before we got to go to break, if we're dealing with a creature that has way less numbers than, let's say, the bear population, because that's comparatively to what it is, I'm assuming here. There is no way, if you're rarely seeing a bear in the forest, there is the chances of seeing a Sasquatch are even worse than seeing a bear. Much worse.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and let's even, build on top of that and add intelligence to that. You know, a bear, typically, if you stumble across it, it doesn't know what to do. It runs away, But a Sasquatch or a Bigfoot with higher intelligence, it's going to know how to avoid you. Again, you are in its environment. This is its home. It knows what it's doing. You don't. As much as you may think, oh, I'm a bushman, I'm a hunter, I'm one with the woods. No, you're not. Compared to Bigfoot, you're not. So, again, even seeing it, if you're lucky enough to be in the vicinity of one, he'll know you're there long before you know that it's there. So it's hard. It really is.
Oh, definitely. Absolutely, it's hard. But you got to keep doing it, don't you?
Yes, that's the key. Yeah, persistence.
Every day. Every day.
How often do you guys go out? Daryl?
We go out about every week, possibly every other week. We haven't been going out. This month, we went out to Willow Creek on September 2nd. And then we did one sighting 2 weeks ago. We did an investigation at Ansel Hoffman Park, which is in Carmichael, California, not far from our front door. And it ended up being pretty hokey. But we go out about every other week.
Oh, wow. So you guys are quite busy on this, and that's great. We're going to get into more Sasquatch talk with Daryl Owen and Russell Stater. They're going to be with us for another 90 minutes before we get to the encounter with Olaf Phillips. Talking Bigfoot all night. We're going down to Northern California to see what kind of Sasquatch is roaming around there. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Did you know Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm here to take you on a paranormal journey each Saturday and Sunday night. Why change the station when you have it all right here? Together, we'll hang out and share some strange and scary stories. And don't forget, we have Psychic Sundays as well, so come tune in Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com, where we own the night.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hey, guess what? You can now get your brand new Spaced Out Radio swag at spacedoutradio.com. We've brought the store back with all new items for you to pick out and pick up for yourself, your family, or friends. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, we got it all. All you have to do is head to our website and click on Store. Choose what you want and it's shipped to you. The Spaced Out Radio store is right there for you. Come shop with us at spacedoutradio.com. Then we can own the night together.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are. And what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Coming soon to our website, spacedoutradio.com, is the SOR Space Travelers Club. For just $5 a month, you can get into a private area on our site where you can hang with other listeners in our chat room, post in our forum, and check out a bunch of exclusive content and store that won't be found anywhere else, including a nightly after-show party with Dave. It's going to be the best $5 a month you're going to spend. The SOR Space Travelers, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, Mike Morin is back with another edition of Ghosts of the Great White North. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Also, all of our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Mike McNeil set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Apodiopsis. Apodiopsis is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Mike or Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, but give it a couple weeks. We're revamping the entire Space Out Radio store as we speak. Going to have some really cool products up there for you. And you can read up on the Encounter online with our news section, as it's starting to hop pretty good there as well. Tonight we're talking Sasquatch. We're heading to Northern California, talking with Daryl Owen and Russell Stater as they are investigating the Bigfoot phenomena. Their team, Nor-Cal Squatchers. You can go to their website, norcalsquatchers.com. Follow them on Twitter as well. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's a lot of fun. I love talking this topic. I really, really do. I want to start with a question here from one of our listeners from California. Joe is asking, what county are you guys in?
I am in Sacramento County.
Sacramento and Placer County. Both of us live on different sides of Sacramento, so one's south, one's north. So we operate mostly out of Sacramento, Placer County, but we go El Dorado County, Yolo County, kind of basically the counties anywhere in the Northern California area we operate out of.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Do you guys do a little bit of traveling, Russell, to go to different areas where there is sightings?
Yeah, absolutely. If it's a credible sighting or if it's an area that we think would be really good to explore, we'll go just about anywhere. So, yeah, we've gone as far north, 3 or 4 hours north. I can't actually think of the area, forgive me. But, we've done pretty much all the Nevada Sierra Mountain Range that you can think of, from north of Yosemite just about to the Nevada-Oregon border up there in that far corner east. So, yeah, we've definitely traveled around because Bigfoot travels around, so you can't just go to the same area every time. So,
no, absolutely. I fully agree with you on that. And, it's always interesting when you get these sightings and reports come in. Daryl, how many sightings and reports do you get annually with your team?
Well, we start out, beginning of the month, we average about 3 or 4 a month. And then we do some preliminary work and some investigating work to make sure that we are investigating something that's real and not a hoax. But they come from people. I mean, we talk to them, we investigate them, we make sure that it's a good lead, and then we go and we do the investigation.
So take me through. Let's say I call in a Bigfoot report to you guys saying, I was out fishing with my son and we noticed across the river that there was something big and large. I've been in the wilderness a long time and I can tell a bear from something else. This was definitely not a bear. Take me through what happens at that point.
Well, we have go ahead, Russell.
Well, yeah, so basically, like you said, if you're reporting to us, hey, I saw something, I'm not sure what it is, the biggest thing is the details are in the specifics about it, and that's what we try to focus on. So what you just described right there is that, okay, if you're an avid hunter or fisher, you know the difference between a bear. That's a good sign right then and there. Okay, so obviously you've been out there. Like you said, you can tell the difference between animals. Things are kind of looking, this is a green flag. This is a positive thing that we look for. If somebody was to report, I've never been in the woods, and I went in the woods and I saw this thing 5 feet away, well, that's a red flag. That's something that we go, well, okay, we have to kind of, look at this a little bit differently. But then, again, it's all in the details. So, rack your brain. When was this? Was this months ago? Was this yesterday? Was this last week? Was this a few hours ago? And that's really then kind of where our process as the Nor-Cal group takes off. If we have a report that someone calls and says, I just saw this, I was in the woods 30 minutes ago and I saw X, Y, and Z, we will determine, okay, where is this? What does it sound like? Gather the information, and we will be in our cars and on our way there immediately, because that was a sighting that obviously there was something in the area that, it was just there. We have a high probability or possibility of seeing something or seeing evidence. If you were to report that, well, I saw this a few months ago, what we do then is, again, we mark it on our map. We note the area. We note the description. Okay, it was, standing bipedal. It was 7 feet tall. What was going on in the area? Did you hear any sounds? Did you feel a presence near you? After you left or after you saw it, did you hear things behind you? It's kind of the before and after can be just as compelling as the actual sighting. If someone is going through the woods and they say, I was just, going out for a hike and all of a sudden everything got really quiet, just really still. I didn't hear birds. I didn't hear animals. And, then all of a sudden I look up in front of me and I see this thing. That to me is more compelling, than just, I was rocking to, rock music going out there and, riding my bike, doing BMX tricks. And, I flew over a giant creature and I think you guys should check it out. It's like, wow, okay, I'm not really sure. We'll go from there. But and then especially the after effect. How did it make you feel as a person? Did you flee the scene? Did you go and investigate it? Did you, hear or see or smell anything in the area after? What did you do after? And that, in my opinion, is where you'll get the most genuine response and the most genuine sightings, because anyone that would see these creatures is going to be compelled, is going to be overwhelmed, I would say, with, either emotion or fear or some type of response. So if somebody says, I saw this thing, I sat there and stared at it, I wanted to poke it with a stick, I laughed and giggled, and then, we walked away and I enjoyed the rest of my camping trip. That's not really the experience that I would think someone seeing something that they have no idea what it is, something very large, something that could obviously can inflict a great amount of damage to you if it wanted to, would be telling. So I want the whole story of, who you are as a person, where you are accounting this from, give me obviously the details of the description of what you saw, and then, tell us how that made you feel seeing it. And I think that's where you'll get the most credible witnesses and the most, information out of someone.
I think so, too. Let's continue with the questions. A follow-up from Joe. Have you ever had reports coming out of Nevada County? And have you ever followed up on them?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, Nevada County is it runs into the Nevada Sierra Mountain Range, so absolutely. I can say that a vast majority for the people in the California area, or you can look it up on a map, we have a huge amount of sightings anywhere north of Highway 50, and especially between Highway 50 and Highway 80, between the Sacramento Valley and the Nevada Sierra Mountain Range. It seems to be almost kind of a hot spot. And we do a vast amount of investigations in those areas. So definitely a lot in the Nevada area, definitely a lot in the Placer County area, but definitely in between Highway 80 and Highway 50, which are our two major, I guess, highway or intersections into the Nevada Sierra Mountain Range.
Yeah, you definitely got to get a hold of Joe, because he actually has tracks on his driveway that took about 7 steps for him to go between footsteps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Either if he can reach out to us via our website, or if you can exchange our information, you've got our interest now. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Careful, though. He has really nice hair. Don't touch the mane.
Got it. 10-4. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be jealous of the hair. I'm not going to lie. I am. So it's a thing around here. New Joe, another Joe, is asking, do you put any credence into tree stands or tripods as a Bigfoot sign when you're out in the forest? Daryl, do you want to start with that?
I don't. I don't do any tree stands. I don't do any tree pods. I am boots on the ground and a lot of walking. So I've never done that before. Tree stands, I've never done it. I guess I could just say I've never done it.
How about you, Russell?
This is where the benefit of both of us comes into play. I'm torn on the subject, to be honest. I have done it before. I've only done it once, but I have actually done it. I've done blinds. I've done tree stands, and I never saw anything then. And to be honest, I never heard anything. And I think the problem is that you're limiting yourself literally to one spot. It's not even one area. It's one spot. So unless you know for some fact that you have it baited, or, somebody just saw something here 20 minutes ago, I think you're limiting yourself too much by just staying in one spot. Now, back to kind of my technology side of things, I am all for and will absolutely slap a trail cam on that tree, or some type of other recording device, and check that area out. Or, as Daryl would do, put an apple in the tree, or put some candy in the tree, and say, okay, we'll come back to this area later. But as far as, kind of sitting in the trees and the tree stands, I think it's limiting yourself much to one spot for too long.
What about structures that people claim are made by Bigfoot, Russell? You know, you get these teepees that are said to be made, or trees pushed over or bent over or snapped for no reason at 10, 11, 12 feet high.
Yeah, personally, I think that's a form of evidence. I really do. I think that's one of the harder pieces of evidence, though, to, authenticate, because it is so difficult to say, okay, how did this tree break? Or, maybe someone did break it this way. But there is certain, times where you will come across, like you said, the teepee type structures, or a tree that's been uprooted and actually flipped upside down. And it comes to the point where it's actually, okay, what is actually more believable here? That there's someone in the woods ripping this up, flipping this over, making this weird thing, and then just going on with his life, or that it's a creature, or it's some type of, environmental response to territory, or, there's a male in the area, or, something along those lines. And personally, I have to say it's a creature. It makes sense that it would use its environment around it, and especially the height and the weight and the width of some of these trees that are broken over, that it's not going to be done by just, I don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger's out there breaking trees, 7 feet high just to do it, Mr. Governor on his spare time, but so what else would be doing it then? There's lots of videos of people that they've posted where it's bears, or other large animals will go up and scratch themselves on these trees. And that's how they break, or that's how they fall in these weird areas, or that's how they have scratch marks on them. But that doesn't account for 6-7 feet up in the air. And that doesn't account for, we'll go out and we'll see one of these, and the tree, the direction that it's broken is the same as another one that's, hundreds of yards away, the exact same direction. Where it's like, okay, well, a bear just knows that, okay, I'm going to, rub my, back against it at this height, at this tree, and this same direction. No, there's obviously some form of higher intelligence here. There's a purpose to it. So I'm a believer that it is actually a form of evidence. Yeah.
Daryl, how about you?
Hey,
with the structures.
I was gonna say, could I jump in here? Over the past couple of years that we've been doing research, we have actually seen a couple of those tents, the teepee style, and over the past couple of months, I've seen an increasing part of the broken trees bent over, large tree stumps bent over that are still green. We have one of our hot spots that we go to on a regular basis, and there is actually one tree that has been bent over for quite some time. And when we cross that tree and we go farther into the forest, that part of it, we always end up hearing something. We end up noticing other trees, like Russell just said, bent the same way.
Right.
And what I always tell somebody, if the tree is bent, we're crossing it. I mean,
I gotta ask you.
I want to
Yeah.
Okay.
I got to ask you, in regards to the things you hear, have you ever heard, and this is going to sound like such a hokey question, but have you ever heard Bigfoot talking? And the reason why I ask is, a few months ago in the summertime, Mike Morin, who will be on the show tomorrow night, he and I, along with Bazooka Joe, we were investigating this old plane crash that the debris is still in the area, and it's in the middle of the forest where there's a lot of activity with animals around there. And Mike and I both heard with our ears, like there was a man's voice just mumbling. You couldn't make it out, but it was like, that's kind of what it sounded like. Almost like, you remember Pa from the Hillbilly Bears?
I do.
Yeah, that's what he sounded like. Pa from the Hillbilly Bears.
Yeah.
Right? And Mike and I are like, I look at Mike and I'm like, did you hear that? He's like, yeah. And it was weird because that area, it is known to be a little bit haunted. I mean, 54 people died on that aircraft when it crashed.
Wow.
And it's 35 kilometers, which is about 25 miles from civilization. And it's not an easy access to get there, but you can get there. And it was weird to hear those noises. Now, Mark didn't hear them. He heard something rustling very big in the forest. And in the forest here, when we go around, as much as we don't want to when we're looking for Sasquatch, we do have to go in armed.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of animals up here who would love to have you for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And so we heard something big rustling around. Now, in that area, it could have been a cow, could have been a bear, could have been a moose, a deer, whatever it was. But it was a high sound. Like, you can tell where the sound is coming from. If it's coming from low on the ground or a little bit, 4, 5, 6 feet up. And it was a little bit of a high sound. So Mark didn't hear the mumbling, but have you heard something like that before?
I personally have never heard mumbling, but I have heard the low guttural growls when we cross those trees that have been bent over. In November of last year, we did go up and did an investigation where somebody had reported a sighting, and we had gone up along a creek bed and had gone up about a mile, and we had heard some growling, so we had followed the growling, and then we turned around and came back. And on the way back, we came back exactly the same way, and just in front of us, there was 2 trees that were bent over and knocked over, broken probably 8 to 10 feet up, and probably 25 feet from the trees, there was one ginormous footprint. And while we were there, while we were trying to cast it, we could hear that low guttural growl. I mean, once again, it could have been any kind of animal, but at the time, because of the tree structures, they'd literally just been bent over and broken. I don't know how it could have happened, but I'm one of those people that said this is definitely Bigfoot stuff. But that footprint was the part that changed my mind and realized that we are in a lot of danger here. But the low guttural growls continued, and it followed us all the way back almost to where our vehicle was at. I have never heard talking, so I can't say I have. All right.
Russell, how about you?
I've never personally heard forms of communication like that. In my opinion, it makes sense that would be a form of communication. I've heard evidence recorded in the past. Obviously, I think the Sierra sounds, where there's actually almost chatter, between the animals. That's another subject that I'm kind of torn on. It makes sense that would be a form of communication. It makes sense that is how, a creature like that would communicate, or even like you said, with the low mumble, kind of that low, like you were saying, but I have yet to personally experience it. And it's kind of one of those things that unless I hear it or unless, I can get a sense of the surrounding environment, I just don't know. It's got to communicate somehow. It's got to communicate to each other somehow, whether that's, above human understanding as far as, telekinesis or, something along those lines, or, it's trying to talk to you guys right then and there. And it's saying, really softly, hey, this is my plane crash. Leave me alone, so
leave me alone. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it was Sasquatch. I don't know if it was something paranormal. Okay. But we were the only 3 people out there. There were no other vehicles, and there was no other people. Like you have to go down this logging road that is pretty uninhabited. And you got to realize, in my community, there's only about 2,000 people. All right. Now, that's not saying that there isn't going to be anybody out there, but we were way off the path. And in order to get to the plane crash, you have to take a pretty bumpy 4x4 type road in order to get there. And then you have to get out of your vehicle and hoof it up a hill in order to get to the crash site. So, I mean, it could have been anything. It could have been something paranormal. It could have been Sasquatch. It could have been whatever it may be. I don't know. I'm not sitting there saying, I'm not like a television show where there's a fart in the wind and all of a sudden that's Bigfoot. Not like that whatsoever. But it was very intriguing, so I was curious if you had heard anything like that before. Let's get to another question here. This one comes from Mike, and Daryl will start with you on this one. He's asking, do you put any truth into the stories of people like hunters or trackers being contracted by the government to track or hunt Sasquatch?
Well, that's one of those government things. I don't believe that I don't believe people are paid to hunt or track them. I've never met anybody or talked to anybody to do that. I will tell you that I've been confronted before by officials that tell me not to show certain things or produce certain things. So I think there are some conspiracy things out there. I'm not saying that they're all, but I have never personally met anybody or heard anybody talk like that where they've been paid to do that.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Russell?
I actually think that there probably has been. It's the funny thing kind of about, the government is that if someone or a larger group enough of people, say something, they'll investigate it at one point or another. So how serious they took it is what I've always wondered. I've heard stories and I've seen, I want to say, some evidence in the past about, the government getting involved in actually hiding the evidence of them. So they know they exist, and they actually will purposely go and try and make sure that no one knows, or that the evidence doesn't really get out there that they do exist. So in order for them to know they exist, obviously they've had experience with them in the past. So, and when it comes to the credibility of someone, like you said, that said that they've been hired by the government, or, they have some type of tracker training and that they were told to go out there, I think the credibility is actually high just due to the fact that they do have the experience to know the difference between what they're seeing. And if they did discover something out there, let's face it, it makes sense. If you're going to hire a group of people that, know what to look for and drop them in an area, you're going to know that that area has either had recent sightings or that there's something going on in this area. The government's not just going to say, okay, yeah, we're going to invest money and, let's pick these people up and let's go drop them over here and, let them run around for 20 minutes and see if they find something. If they're going to do it, they're going to be serious about it. So if somebody comes back and says, hey, I was involved in one of these and I saw something, I don't know what I saw, or, here's my story, I'm going to listen to it. I'm going to want to hear it. And that's where, again, I'm going to say, okay, well, the devil's in the details. What do you remember of it? How were you even treated after? Did you even report it to your CEO or, whoever you were supposed to? And if so, what's the story after what you saw? That's what I want to know. And that's what, again, adds to the credibility of it to me.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree. Daryl, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. When you have a sighting or when you turn in evidence or you do things out of the ordinary, the government finds out. Honestly, they find out. And you'd be surprised what you turn in or let me try to put this in the right way. I'm losing my words here. When you're a researcher and you find something of a big evidence, something that's going to turn the tables, there's always some kind of government thing that gets involved in there. Now, I have a handprint. And the handprint is not a secret. And I've had it for 26 years. We had it analyzed. And it ended up getting a gag order put on it from the people that did the actual testing. So, and we've gone out, we've been followed. We've gone out and parked our vehicles, and there's policemen out there. There's there's been there was a thing that just happened a few months ago with my wife and I, where we were out and we were doing some tracking, and we came across some evidence and some things had happened, and we were told to keep our mouth shut. I think the government has got, they protect stuff just like UFOs. They don't want to admit that these things really exist. UFOs, Bigfoot, Loch Ness, all of the cryptids, all of the alien factors, and Dave, especially you, as I listen to your radio station, or your radio shows quite often, and I hear a lot of the folks that you have on there say exactly what I just said, that the government has a lot of cover-ups out there. And I believe Bigfoot is one of the cover-ups. When there is an actual sighting, when there's an actual sighting by a government official, they are not allowed to talk about it. When I had my sighting in Klamath, I was still in the military. I was told that I had to wait and go IRR, which is inactive ready reserve, before I could go on TV. I mean, if you look at the video of when I'm going down the mountain, I'm in BDUs, battle dress uniforms. I'm in camouflage. I'm in a black T-shirt. That was my military uniform. And when I told the military that I saw a Bigfoot, they asked me not to go on TV until I went inactive ready reserve. So, there's government things out there that don't allow us to talk about stuff. And when Russell and I were just up at Willow Creek this last month, I go over and talk to the police officers from Humboldt County. And I say, and we try to give them a business card, one of our cards, and say, look, if you guys ever see anything, can you give us a call? Even if it's quiet. We'll give you a call. I mean, it's almost like as if they were like, we can't do it. That's the part that I don't understand. Why don't we just open the door up and say, look, these things exist? What would be the harm?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. But apparently there is some harm there. But what do you do?
Yeah.
What do you do?
That's true.
You guys, actually, I'll get to this question first from Trip in the chat room. He's saying, have you ever been up to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington to investigate? And have you, and I'll let you answer that first, because this is a two-part question.
The farthest up that I have been is the Dalles in Oregon. I have never been to Washington State, so I don't have an answer for you.
It's only about it's only about 8.5 hours up the I-5. Not that far.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Russell.
Yeah, we want to go. I mean, that is, in my opinion, ground zero. I mean, that's definitely, British Columbia and, Washington right there, and especially the Olympic National Forest. That is kind of our spot where we set our goals to. But again, it's, a matter of trip, and, we have lives and everything else, unfortunately, too, that get in the way. So, yeah.
Yes. And you have wives that may want to come, and that's always, I'm going in the forest with men, and we're going to act like men, and, oh, I know.
Yep.
I know.
Yes.
I know all too well.
Yeah.
He's also asking, have you ever heard of a dude named Mick Dodge? This is a guy who apparently dresses up as Bigfoot wearing actual furs, using plywood cutouts to make feet look like Bigfoot prints. And what's your thoughts of him doing that? And how do you tell real evidence from faked evidence? Daryl, do you want to start with that?
Well, sure. I'll be honest with you. That pisses me off when they do that. It makes me mad because about 7 months ago, we had a report about a CHP officer that was investigating somebody dressed up in a Bigfoot costume on the side of the road and got hit by a car. The car hit the guy and killed him. That gives it's people like that put on those fake shoes and go out and fabricate footprints and scare people to get them to go out and say, oh, I saw a Bigfoot. Well, to me, that's just, I don't know. I don't like it. I personally don't like it. I think you should just leave it be. You're not doing a Harry and the Hendersons thing where you're Jacques Lafleur going through the forest, stomping grounds. And another thing is when you step in the ground, when a Bigfoot steps in the ground, every print is going to be different. Every toe mark is going to be different. Nothing is going to be the same when they walk on the ground. With fabricated prints, and you can tell this, every footprint will be the same.
Wow.
So it's very easy to distinguish between a fake print and a real print.
And how about for you, Russell? How do you try and get that evidence known to whether it's real or faked?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much the same way. It's one of those where if it looks too good to be true, it very well may be. When it comes to, the gentleman using plywood, obviously that's going to be a very flat print. Like Daryl said, every print's going to be the same then if it's in the same area. It's just not going to be consistent with, flesh, forming to the ground, and it's not going to have the foot ridges that the bottom of a pad would have and toe marks. So it's one of those that, oh my gosh, look, this is a perfect outline of a foot. That doesn't happen just, willy-nilly. So it's going to be almost one of those, again, if it's too good to be true, probably is. And that's where you have to look at then really, again, the detail of it. Okay, how deep is the impression? Is it an inch into the dirt, and how wet is the dirt, and how long ago was this? And you have to also take a step back then and think, okay, did anyone know I was going out here in this area? Did anyone, know that, okay, this is a Bigfoot sighting area and people like myself will be out here researching? Because that plays a lot into it. Obviously, if, we say, oh, yeah, we're going up to this area tomorrow, someone may get it in their head that, oh, I'm going to go spoof these people, or, oh, I'm going to go plant evidence. So it's one of those things that, like you said, if you had come out to the area where the plane was, where it's in the middle of nowhere, and found, one or two prints, and they looked, it's going to be convincing, because who's going to come out here to hoax somebody in this area? Somebody's just going to say, oh, I'm going to go out here on the off chance that in the next, few days somebody's going to see these prints, because, any print that's left probably, in my opinion, more than a few weeks is going to be erased by the elements anyways. So you have to know that there's going to be someone that's going to see the evidence that I'm seeing in the area. I don't think that's probable for some of the footprints. But like I said, if it's too good to be true, you see a bunch of prints 10 feet off of Highway 50, well, that probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense if, like Daryl said, they're all the same. There's no ridges in it. There's no defining toe factor. There's no splits. There's a lot of different things to kind of look for. And to the other subject of how does it make me feel, it's the same. It's upsetting. It's disappointing because it makes a mockery of the subject again, and it really sets back the research, because, to be honest, we still look at it. We still go and we investigate it and look at it and say, okay, well, is this real? And, sometimes you can tell, right off the bat, and sometimes you do have to kind of look at it a little bit more and say, okay, this just isn't deep enough. There's no way that anything over 100 pounds made this, or this isn't consistent with some of the other prints that we have found, or there is something off with this toe, because literally every footprint is the same, But that is time and effort then that we spent into something that is not legitimate, and it's frustrating. And, we could have been off doing another investigation or looking at real evidence, or, while we have our faces down looking at these fake prints, 100 yards away is the real guy, and he's running away from us, and we never knew because we're distracted, so it is frustrating.
Do you guys ever just get one print?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed that the majority of time it's only one print? And that's what kind of trips me out, because I've talked to a lot of investigators, and they seem to have this too, where they'll come across a footprint. And there's been no trace of human evidence around or anything along those lines, and there's one print. There's no print leading out, no print leading in. The two that we have found, me and my buddies have found around here, both different sizes, One was about 18.5 inches. One was about 14, 15 inches. And there was only one print. Why do you think that there's only one? Even if you continue the track to look both ways to see where it came from or where it's going, there's nothing.
Can I jump in there, Russell?
Go for it.
Okay. So Dave, this is one of those things. I was going to mention this too. We've gone out on many, many of investigations and only found 1 or 2 footprints. But I'll tell you the most bizarre thing is when you go out in the snow and you have maybe an inch worth of snow and it's still slushy and you're trampling through the snow and you can turn around and look back and you can see your tracks all the way back to your vehicle, but you walk up on a single footprint in the snow. Now, where are the other ones? Now, this is one of those things that I got to tell you, this is one of those things where in my head, are Bigfoot spiritual? Do they become a spiritual creature? Can they disappear and appear anytime they want? Are they interdimensional creatures? Are they out there just so we see them and then disappear? Because they just don't disappear. We've gone out on several occasions where we've casted where there's 3 or 4 footprints, but if you look back, literally in the dirt, you can see our tracks for a mile. It is just bizarre, like you said, one track. And the one snow print that we took was up north, and it was one single footprint in the snow, and it was a footprint. It was 18 inches long. I think it was 8 or 9 inches wide. Where does it go? I mean, it doesn't leap under the trees. Where does it go? So that's one of those things that's really confusing, especially to me. And I've said this to Russell before because I want to believe and I know in my heart that they're real and they're upright walking Gigantopithecus blackie. They're intelligent, but there's that one print. And then you got to think, well, where did it go? You know? And there's just nothing. So...
Yeah, it is very, very intriguing indeed. Let's get to BTO's question here. We got, I always curious about his questions because he's a New York Mets fan and I'm a Yankee fan. And, sometimes we just don't agree on things. But nonetheless,
yeah.
He is asking, what do you think Sasquatch is? Do you believe they are native to North America, maybe going as far back as Pangea? Do you think they're some sort of hybrid? Do you think they're extraterrestrial, maybe interdimensional? Russell, let's start with you on that one.
My beliefs personally is I believe they are of the physical world. So I don't believe they're interdimensional. Now, when it comes to that, I don't know everything about Bigfoot, obviously. So I still learn every day new things about, the species or the potential of the species. So I'm still open-minded when it comes to that aspect. But right now, I believe that they are a physical creature, that they're not interdimensional in this world, I should say. So, and what I personally believe that they are is a descendant of Gigantopithecus blackie, which was a very large ape-like creature that was thought to have gone extinct 100,000 years ago, and lived within the Asian continent or the Russian continent and everything as well. So I believe that what happened was it came over via the land bridge, X amount of years ago, and while the vast majority of them died off, I think they never really truly went extinct. I think that they just adapted to the environment that they're in. And that's why I kind of believe that they're the difference between the Yeti or the abominable snowman, kind of our Appalachian, our snow cousin, is is the same species, but just an evolutionary difference, an evolutionary process of it. You know, it's solid white because it lives in the snow most of the time, where the North American Sasquatch has adapted to its surroundings to have a more colorful, skin color and a more colorful coat, and there's differences between the two of them to help them for their environment. So I believe that it's the same Gigantopithecus blackie that, if and when we catch it, it's going to, show that, and it'll show that it's been, a reminiscent or an evolutionary down trait of it, that it crossed the barrier land bridge and has just been living here in small numbers all along.
What about the First Nations stories of the creature appearing and disappearing, footprints where you see a track of footprints, say, through the snow, and then poof, they're gone? That would not be from a creature that is here or native to the land.
And that's interesting. It really is. That is one of the intriguing mysteries that surround it. Because I agree, you'll find a print, and why again is it just one print? And you will talk to sightings and individuals and reports of, like you said, it's there and then it's gone. It's disappeared, or it's come and gone, or it's potentially even shapeshifted into something else. Unfortunately, I have the mindset that I really need to see that to have an understanding and to believe it. So what I chalk that up to as, I don't disbelieve that you're not seeing it. I don't think you're making it up, but I'm wondering if what they're seeing is misidentification. If, okay, you thought it disappeared, but really it went behind a rock and you didn't notice, or, you thought it, became this cloud of mist, but really what you're looking at is an actual cloud of mist and a bear in the mist. It could be 1,001 different things. Now, when it comes to, like you said, the evidence that I was tracking this thing, it was right in front of me, here's the prints, and then it just disappears, I'm baffled. I really am. I don't know everything about these creatures. I wish I did, because if so, I would go out and talk to one tomorrow and find it. But, it's possible that they know how to not leave tracks after a certain amount of time, or as humans, when we go out into the bush, we seek out the path of least resistance. We will find a trail that's been carved out already, or we will find a path that we can cross easier, where a Sasquatch in its natural environment may do the absolute opposite of that if it's trying to avoid us. It can say, okay, well, this gigantic boulder or these rocks that a human would never think to look or could cross, I can cross and not leave any trace evidence of even being on it, so I'm going to do that. And when we come up to the scene, we say, well, where's all these snowy tracks on this path that we're on that just disappeared? Well, it's because he, knew how to not leave tracks and jumped over here, or, X, Y, and Z. But it is definitely a mystery, and it is baffling. So I will admit that.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Daryl? What is your thoughts on what Bigfoot is?
Okay, well, this is going to kind of contradict what I said previously, that I believe that they're living, breathing creatures. I think Gigantopithecus, I believe it's a Gigantopithecus blackie, and I agree that they came across the Bering Strip. One went up north, and the other one came down, and it adapted to its environment like a polar bear. It got white hair, became the Yeti, abominable snowman. The other one came down here, became Sasquatch, or the skunk ape, or the Rougarou, or whatever you want to call them. But I've had numerous conversations with the Northern California director of MUFON. His name's Ruben Urardi. And he invited my wife and I and the Nor-Cal family to a meeting of theirs. And he shared some of his stories with us, that people have seen alien craft, and then a couple hours, or they've witnessed seeing a Bigfoot. And the Bigfoot has left a few tracks and disappeared, where nobody saw it again. The track thing will always baffle me. I want Bigfoot. I've seen Bigfoot, and I honestly know that it was a living, breathing creature. It gave me a look, but being in its presence was almost I don't know the word I want to say humbling. It was being in its presence was humbling. When I saw the Bigfoot, the overwhelming fear factor part in there was like, I just got to bow my head and pray to God it doesn't hurt me. That's how I thought it. But when you have people talk about 1 or 2 footprints, it disappeared. I don't know where it went. I couldn't see it after it walked 10 feet from me. It has to go somewhere. And I understand what Russell's point is, that they're good at covering concealment, camouflage, covering its tracks. But yet again, what if they really are an interdimensional creature? The Indians believe that they're interdimensional creatures. They're called the Great Creator, or the Wo-Peka-Mao, the man in the flowered house. They are, to Indians, spiritual beings. So, and the Indians, they've been around the Native American part of it. You look at their history, and Wo-Peka-Mao has been around. The boss of the mountain has been around for years. They can come and go as they please. So they believe he's interdimensional. That single Bigfoot print is the part that really gets me, because then I'm thinking maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it is interdimensional, because it is baffling to me also. I will give you that. I will have to agree with Russell. It's baffling to me. So
yeah, it is kind of weird.
Yeah, and I apologize for my mumbling and my rambling, but I'm trying to find the right words.
Yeah. Daryl, let me ask you this then, okay? Because I really do believe that Sasquatch has some sort of supernatural ability. That's me, though. All right? And I realize that I am in the minority. But there are a lot of Bigfoot researchers out there who absolutely refuse to even acknowledge or research anything that isn't or that is out of the norm. So if you believe in absolutely everything, you have your opinion, you have stated your opinion of what you think it is, but you're not holding yourself to that. Why do you think there is this narrow-mindedness with a lot of researchers out there then?
I think researchers want to have that. Let me try to say it the right. I think researchers, when they go out, they want to bag the Sasquatch. They want to bring one back. They want to be able to prove to science that Sasquatch is real. That they can take one out of the bag and say, "I've caught one." Yet, since 492 AD, Leif Erikson saw the great hairy men in the forest. The Patterson Gimlin filled Patty. Nobody has ever killed one yet. Not even come close. Other than the hoaxsters. Nobody's killed one yet. I don't think in my lifetime anybody's ever going to kill one. And I don't think anybody's ever going to kill one in my grandkids' lifetime. I really don't think it's going to happen. It's like Russell just said, they're intelligent. We could go all back over that. But then again, there's that question, can they disappear or reappear wherever they want? And the researchers are the ones that are the ones that are going to prove whether they're human or they're interdimensional. And researchers like yourself, Dave, you just said what you believe, and Russell has said what he believes, and I've said what I believe. So everybody has an opinion. Our opinions are different, but then again, what's the ultimate goal in researching? To find one, to bring one back. I'll never kill one. I go out unarmed. I just refuse to carry a weapon when I go out. I've seen enough problems with guns and things. So,
and one of those, Daryl, if I can interject too,
that's all right. Yeah,
I agree with you. And back to kind of Dave's, with a question and the point there, that why do so many scientific minds, just completely dismiss that thought of it? And I think it really comes down to the fact that if they're willing to accept that, or if they are willing to investigate it, then really they have to open their minds to a whole bunch of other avenues as well. And I think that's really where part of the problem comes into play, is that, you have a lot of people with a very scientific mindset and a very specific field of, science that they study and that they follow. And that if you start, saying, okay, well, if it is an interdimensional being of sorts, well, then really that takes it out of their element, and they have no idea, just like we have no idea. So they kind of get lost, they kind of get scared, and if it's something that they can't compute, basically, they're not going to want to believe it. And, that's the bottom line, is that if it is interdimensional, let's face it, okay, we have no idea how it what other dimensions and it's going in and out of, how it's, creating these vortexes, how, we have no idea then how that works, and how we even begin to investigate that, I think, would be years and years and years away, via science and technology. But the scientific mind right now just isn't ready to open up enough to believe that that's even a possibility. I mean, if you walk up to a scientist, let alone and say, I'm a Bigfoot researcher, they're going to say, well, okay, you're crazy anyways, or whatever, I don't believe in, Sasquatch. But if you go and say, I believe that they're an interdimensional being, they will even go, well, even beyond that, and say, well, you're, even more crazy potentially. They just don't want to wrap their minds around that this is something that I don't understand, and this is something that is beyond my books and my educational training that I have, and that there is more in this world to learn.
I get you there. Gentlemen, I got to get you to hold on. We're going to hop out for our final break of the night. We were talking with Daryl Owen and Russell Stater. They are from Nor-Cal Squatchers, talking Bigfoot all night long here. We got them for another half an hour before we get into the news with Olaf Phillips. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this. If you're heading to Vancouver, make sure you stop by the official bar of Spaced Out Radio, the Moose Vancouver. It's the place to party in YVR at the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is always up to speed with a kitchen staff that serves great food. All food on the menu, $6.95 to $8.95. There's a reason the Moose Vancouver is recognized as one of the hottest spots on the West Coast. Get your horns up for the Moose Vancouver.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
On the first Tuesday of every month, I encourage you to come along for a journey with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You. Together, we will take a look at how to access the highest expression of yourself and change your life. Consciousness, ET contact, health, and wellness, we can talk about it all. So come along for a spiritual ride with me, Geraldine Orozco, on The Spiritual You, only on Spaced Out Radio.
We are getting ready to relaunch the SOR Space Travelers Club at spacedoutradio.com. For $5 a month, you can join us for a plethora of features found nowhere else. Hang out in a private chat room during the show and after party. You can check out some exclusive content and a store specifically for you, as well as a private listener forum where you can post your thoughts, stories, and pictures. The SOR Space Travelers Club, coming soon to spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thaw. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother is watching.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Are you looking to keep up with Spaced Out Radio? What better way to do so than to go shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store? It's a great place to get exciting swag that will make you look good. We have t-shirts, hats, hoodies, and so much more for you to dress yourself up with. All you have to do is go on our website, spacedoutradio.com, click on the store, and get what you want. It's that simple. So come shop at our store, where we can own the night together.
From the mile-high mountains of Colorado to all of you around the world, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I invite you to stick around spacedoutradio.com for Saturday and Sunday nights where I host Spaced Out Weekend. Let me take you on a wild ride of weird and strange topics, from ghosts and ETs to remote viewing, psychic phenomena, and so much more. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time on Spaced Out Weekend, where we own the night.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, it's Ghosts of the Great White North with Mike Morin. We talk Haunted Barkerville. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel, where we store our archives. It's youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Mike McNeil has set the password for tonight. in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Apodiopsis. Apodiopsis is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Mike or Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot. Now, I know Uncle Dale and his power stash in the chat room are wondering about this. He's like, there is no Spaced Out Radio store. We are rebuilding it right now. We're rebranding it. We're going to get a bunch of new T-shirts and hoodies and hats and coffee mugs and everything for you. So just give us time. It's going to take another week to 2 weeks to get that thing going. But when we do, it's all there for you at the Spaced Out Radio store. And, of course, you can read up on the Encounter Online, our news section. Great stories. I got my blog going again. Captain Shirk's got some great articles. We got some great articles hanging around there as well from our news director, Everett Thiemer, and we have a lot of fun with it. So make sure you read up on that as well. From North California, we have Nor-Cal Squatchers, teammates Daryl Owen and Russell Stater, as we're talking Bigfoot all night tonight. And gentlemen, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. What a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. Really has been a lot of fun. This, as we got you for about 25 more minutes here, this half hour, I want to talk about your evidence. And Russell, I want to start with you on this one, because outside of footprints, maybe some questionable hair samples, we're hoping, and I know they'll love this at hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter, because they love it when we talk about the scat samples. What is there? What do we have to do to gain any further evidence, or what have you guys found that leads to some sort of conclusive type proof that there is something roaming the forests of California?
You know, I think the bottom line, what's really going to change the history books and really bring this, to light is going to be DNA evidence. That's always the magic ticket here. It's something that's irrefutable. No one's going to be able to ever fake it. It's something that the scientific community can get behind. So DNA evidence is definitely going to be the golden key here. Now, getting that DNA evidence, that's, of course, the problem. That's the trickiness of it. There's obviously hair samples can be a really good DNA sample, but it has to be, it has to have the roots. It has to be somewhat, recent. It can't be exposed to elements for too long. And the same with scat, and the same with, various other ways of getting DNA. The bottom line, unfortunately, is that we need a large DNA sample. And what that means is either a body, which would be, phenomenal, because obviously then you have this entire, creature right in front of you, or a large portion of a body. So a hand or an arm, something along those lines. A skull or a head would be excellent, because then you could have brain cavity, and then you could really get into a whole lot more scientific aspects of it besides potentially just its overall size, which you may get with, like, if you find a femur or something. But, that's the golden ticket, obviously, is DNA. So, when researchers go out into the field, when we go out into the field, that's what you always kind of hope that you come across. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, it'd be sad to come across a dead one, but you actually kind of hope you do come across a dead one, because then there's the evidence that you have. The problem is that, obviously finding it is extremely rare, and then you have to know what you look for. If you come across a bone or a set of bones in the woods, it could be anything. I mean, literally anything. It could be, fox, animal, different bones. It could, you may have, come across a human skeleton that, the mob dumped off there that they didn't want you to find, So it's one of those things that you have to know what to kind of look for. You have to investigate and say, okay, is this a bare bone, or, what is this? But, the bottom line is that if you're not sure, take it. Secure the evidence, make sure that you do it properly, make sure that you don't just toss it in a grocery bag and, with your sandwich rolling around next to it and contaminate the sample. You got to know how to collect the evidence properly, store it, make sure it doesn't, again, get contamination. And then the biggest hurdle that I think we find is that even after finding the evidence, we don't know where to go with that evidence. And that's been the biggest hurdle so far, is that if you come across the hair, you come across something that has potential DNA, where can you take it that, number one, a standard citizen or a normal citizen, I guess, would be able to afford, or somewhere that, you can trust them with the evidence, that if they come back and find, that, okay, this is what it is, that they'll tell you the truth. So there's a lot of hurdles there. But I think personally DNA is going to be the golden key here. Now, as far as other evidence, I've heard a lot of recordings that I think are something. That's really not an animal or that I know of. That's not, a wolf or something. There's definitely some audio recordings that just, in my opinion, stack right up there with almost, picture video evidence as far as, something in the woods there. So there's all kinds of different, types of evidence. In my opinion, DNA is key. And then obviously, hey, if we can get HD 4K video of it, really crystal clear and really good audio, then that's, the next best in line. But, DNA is going to be what brings it to light.
How about you, Daryl? What is the best piece of evidence that you have found, say, since you restarted in your Bigfoot hunting?
I would have to say footprints, and then up there, just hair. We found some hair. We found some feces. I think the footprints to me are the most valuable to me. Recently, since we've started doing this, I think it would have to be the footprints. And unfortunately, with the hair, or like Russell said, you find a body, but if you find a body, who do you trust? Who do you turn it into? Who do you call? Who do you find that you can trust and turn it into? I mean, I'll be honest with you. My first call would be to Jeff Meldrum, right off the bat. Boom, I would call him. But but footprints is going to be my number one thing. So I think I continue to collect footprints on a regular basis. I think we're up to about 17 or 18. Our biggest is 22 inches by 9 inches wide, and it was found in one of our hot spots. So we go up there quite often.
That's a big foot, no pun intended. That is a very big foot.
It is a Bigfoot, sir. I'm sorry. It's a and the thing about it is it's very defined, and it's not a slider, what we call a slider, where they step in and then it slides. It's a good impression in the soil.
Well, just imagine the size of that creature too. That's 800,000 pounds potentially to be that large. So that's intimidating alone.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's odd and it's strange and weird at the same time that something that big is not so easy to track. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
look at one print.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, back to the earlier points, absolutely. But look at the amount of people that just go missing out there, the amount of hikers, the amount of aircraft that have gone down that have never been recovered. And I mean, these are massive objects that sometimes even have tracking devices on them that we never discover. So even though it's large and this big, enormous, creature, it can still run. It can still hide. It knows its environment. So I'm not surprised that it's difficult to catch, or I guess I would say to get evidence of. I wish it wasn't so difficult, but there's a lot of woods out there. There's a lot of woods out there. So there's a lot of room for them to hide and know their environment, and for us to try and search them out in. So it's a task.
Couple more questions. Yeah, go ahead, Daryl.
Okay. I'm sorry, so I'll make it real quick. The one thing about it is that when you're like Nor-Cal Squatchers, we're a small group. It's Russell, it's Taryn, my daughter, my wife, and myself. We are Nor-Cal. We're a family, and we do all this together. The thing about it is that when we find hair, and we have found a lot of hair. We've found 3 bundles of hair on 3 different occasions. It's the expense. We're self-funded. We don't ask for donations. We don't beg people for money. We don't have, Russell has bought thousands of dollars of equipment and stuff like that. But when you have hair and you want to have it analyzed, it's up to and can be up to $1,500 a strand. And it's, if you could just find somebody that would say, look, I will do it, and I will come forward and tell you what it is. If it's really a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch, I will come forward with you. If it's a dog or a cat or a cowtail or a horse mane, whatever, I'll be honest with you and I'll tell you what it is. But it costs so much money to get things done nowadays. It's all about the money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And scientifically speaking, it's an expensive creature to try and prove.
It is, sir.
No, absolutely. Let's move on here. All right, I got a couple questions from our audience. This one going to Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. It comes from Mike. And this one's for you, Daryl. He's saying, if you're not sure about what an interdimensional being is, or you don't understand what it is, why do you expect a scientist to believe in the work that you're doing or to believe in Sasquatch being interdimensional?
Well, as a researcher, now I want to try to, maybe I didn't say it right. I believe that Bigfoot is a real being. In my heart, what I saw was a real being. Standing before me is a real beast, a real creature. It was a Bigfoot. It was beige, good size. But my point of it is like you were saying, and what we've witnessed is the one print. If it is an interdimensional creature, where is it? Where is it going? What interdimensional is it? Where is it going? Who is it traveling to and from to? I've never seen a spaceship. I've never seen an alien craft. But that doesn't mean I don't believe in them. I just never have seen one. So I guess maybe I'm not answering the question, but
if I can interject really, I think really what has to be done is like you said, for it to even be an interdimensional being, and for the scientific community then to recognize that, there still has to be some sort of physical evidence, whether that's like a leftover magnetic field or some type of an electronic instrument that can detect, there was a large amount of radiation in this area for a short amount of time, or, something along those lines then that a scientific or a scientist can point to and say, okay, this is what's drawing me out here. Is this weird magnetic field that popped up, or this, radiation spike that, what was this? And then they'll go and investigate that. And then that's where it can say, hey, right here, there was a Sasquatch and this happened. And then that might get their mind going. So it still comes into the point that there still has to be some sort of evidence, hey, let's face it, we get it on camera going into a different dimension. That's awesome. But even that could be disputed,
Well, absolutely. Everything can be disputed without the physical proof of an actual Sasquatch. And this leads into BTO's question. And he is saying, what do you guys feel, and Russell, will start with you on this one, regarding not finding a dead Sasquatch ever? Do you think they're burying their dead, or they just disappear out of thin air?
I think there's two possibilities, and I'm kind of torn down the middle between it. So one, I think it's definitely possible that they bury their dead. A lot of animals do that, actually. A lot of people say, humans are the only ones that actually bury their dead. That's actually, not really true. A lot of animals will do it as a self-defense mechanism to cover the smell. A lot of other animals will eat each other. That's highly possible. If you're an intelligent being and you know that, okay, my friend, my family member, my other Sasquatch died. Well, that's a lot of meat. That's a lot of substance. That's a lot of protein in this, body. So they very well may say, hey, as our ritual, or is this what Sasquatches do? When you die, we eat you. We eat all of you. Or other animals around. Let's face it, there's, when you die in the woods, it doesn't take but a few days for insects and other animals to start to devour you, and you could become nothing but bones after a certain amount of time. So I think it's, potentially 50-50. It's they're bury their dead or eat their dead, or just animals scavenge the body and bones before anyone ever finds it.
What's your thoughts, Daryl?
I think they're intelligent enough to have feelings. I think they're a Gigantopithecus blackie has enough intelligence to bury its dead. Same as a human. You don't see a human taking their dead and eating them, or offering them to the gods and allowing them to be tore up by other animals. I think Gigantopithecus, if it is a real life breathing animal, I think it buries its dead. If it's an interdimensional creature, then I think it gets picked up and that animal goes away. But I believe I don't believe it's an interdimensional creature. I think it's going to be an intelligent creature, and it's going to bury its dead.
Well, there are rumors that they bury them in rock mounds in order to keep them away. I mean, but who knows? We really do not know about what they are doing or what, they are up to.
That's right.
We just don't know. And that's what it's about. The terrain around California is perfect for a lot of wildlife in regards to any creature surviving. And this includes the Bluff Creek area where the Patterson-Gimlin film is. And Daryl, have you ever been down to the original area where the film is like? And maybe you could describe it to us if you have.
I've been there once, and that was in the late 90s. I went down to Al Hodgson's home in Willow Creek, and he actually took me down there. He let me look around down there. He showed me where actually the Patterson-Gimlin film was done. But I have not been back since, sir. We were going to go on the 2nd, and there was so many people up there during the Bigfoot days that we did not get a chance to go down there. But I have been there one time.
What's it like for those of us who've never been there? What's it like? How hard is it to get there?
Well, it's hard to get to. It's about now when I was there then, it was about a 3.5 mile trail. You had to go across the rock beds, across the sandy rib. There was a sand barge there at one point in time that you'd cross over, and then you'd see the outline. They actually have plaques down there that would say where this was, and they have a lot of it's been cleared out. A lot of the logs are gone, but they have a little plaque down there that says this is where the Patterson-Gimlin film was filmed. From what I hear now, it's actually got a fence around it, and you can't even go in there. So, but it's foresty. It's rock shale, a lot of heavy rocks, running water there where you cross over, but it's just a small portion of water when I was there. But it wasn't anything spectacular. It was just a spot where you knew that this was the Patterson-Gimlin film because everybody knew it was there.
Is it eerie? Is it, like a lot of people will say they can read energy, and when you go down there, that time you were down there, could you feel kind of what had happened at that place?
No, I think it was more of a fascination for me. It wasn't eerie. I didn't feel anything out of the ordinary. But I think it was more of a fascination for me that I now know what those men went through seeing a Bigfoot in front of them, filming them. I could actually feel the experience and know the experience that they felt based on what I saw. I could actually look at Bob Gimlin when he was up there. I I described what I saw, and he goes, "I know exactly how you feel." And I'm thinking to myself, "You're exactly right, because you've seen one also." And so I get the feeling there. I was fascinated more than I was creeped out or anything, but I was truly fascinated, Dave. It was well worth the couple-hour trip down there and seeing it. So, and I was appreciative to Al for taking me down there.
Russell, have you been down there? Do we still have Russell? Did we lose him?
No.
Oh, there you are.
Sorry about that. No,
Did you mute yourself?
Yes, I did. Yeah. So, and I'm the technology guy, right? So.
Hey, knock on wood. This is one of the only shows recently where I haven't accidentally muted myself, so we're all good.
All right. I have not actually been to the site. I definitely want to go there, but I have yet to actually go to the site. So I can tell you though that the terrain, like you said, much of the Northern California area is really a lot of forest land. Actually, not very many people think of that. When you think of California, you think of LA and sunny beaches, but really, I mean, the top half of the state is a lot of wooded forest areas. I mean, the Mount Shasta area and the Humboldt County area is almost all forest land. So there's a lot of terrain for them to be in.
So with the terrain that you guys are in, how many Sasquatch do you think are living in the Northern California area? How many? And I realize that's a stupid question to even ask. But with all these sightings and reports that come through, you have to wonder, we're not just seeing one or maybe two creatures.
Well, no. I believe there's groups and families. I honestly do believe that, because where we go and we have our regular hot spots, there are several different size footprints, which means it's several different size creatures. Bigfoot feet are of different sizes, like us humans. And I believe that there are numerous ones up there. And I keep hearing Grover Krantz telling me that it's they grow up, they have babies, the baby gets kicked away from the mom and dad or the family and finds a male or another female, and they start a family, and so forth and so on. So I believe that theory. I believe that's the way it is. I think there's numerous. I think there's more than one.
I definitely think there's more than one. I think they migrate personally too. I think that's one of the appeals of California, especially, of Northern California, is that we do have pretty temperate weather here. So, when there's a lot of snow up north or harsh winters, they'll come down here where we have much milder winters. And, in the summer months when we could be potentially cooler than other areas or hotter, they'll migrate. They know the environment, they know the terrain, they know where they want to go. So I think they migrate even between the states. I don't think it's just, this cluster is here in Northern California only. I think they go where they want.
What about Mount Shasta? I mean, there's some really weird peak woo type stuff there.
Now we have friends of ours that lived in the Shasta area, and we hear reports up there quite often about people hearing Bigfoots and howls and tourists that are out on the landings. We had a report about a year ago of a couple of hogs. They were hunting hogs, and they saw something back in there. So the Shasta area is definitely one of those spots that needs to stay a hot spot in regular investigations.
Gentlemen, we only have about 90 seconds left with you guys, and this show has flown on by. And I want to say a big, big thank you to both Daryl and Russell for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. They don't do a lot of interviews, but I think that your answers were quite honest and open, and I appreciate that. And I hope you guys had a good time.
I did.
Absolutely,
yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Yeah, we'd love to come back if you talk again. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm always open. I always love having good Sasquatch stories on the show because it's important to our audience, and that's kind of what we do. Daryl, if you could do me a favor, give everybody how they can get a hold of you. Give your information up.
You can go to norcalsquatchers.com, go to Contact Us, and fill out whatever you need to fill out in there. Tell us your story. Tell us your gripes, your complaints, whatever you need to do, and we will follow up. And or go to Facebook. Go to Nor-Cal Squatchers at Facebook, and on Twitter it's at Nor-Cal Squatcher, and you can contact us there also. You can also go to the Twitter page for Russell Stater, at Russell Stater, and you can also go to at The Yeti Guy. That is me also.
Awesome.
So if you need to get a hold of us or contact us, that's how you get a hold of us.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Very much appreciated. Coming up next, we have Olaf Phillips. He's going to bring in The Encounter. And once again, as we do every night at this time, I should say, we bring in Olaf Phillips from Paranoia Magazine, the editor, and The Encounter Online from Spaced Out Radio's newsroom. Mr. Olaf Phillips, always a pleasure to have you on. How you doing, man?
Doing all right. How are you?
You know what? I'm doing okay. I love talking some Bigfoot, man. And they're right in your territory, Northern California.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you're a big Bigfoot guy.
I am, and I actually own property in Oregon where Bigfoot has been seen.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I got to find some of them hot spots. I got to get in touch with some of the loggers around here, see what weird stuff they're finding. That's what I need to do. That's where the story is.
Loggers and truckers.
Couple of weird stories from today. By the way, last night when we were talking about To the Stars, I was reading on Twitter here earlier, and even during the break, Mr. DeLong is at it again on Twitter. I don't know if you saw that or not.
No, I didn't look.
I've actually responded to him. I did.
Really?
Yeah. He goes, thank you to the professional journalists who are clarifying their mistake in mischaracterizing what stockholder equity is. It is not debt, money owed, or results from operations. We've simply offered our employees stock-based compensation like most startups do. And then he followed it up with, I also want to mention that I appreciate those who are taking the time to reach out for comment. It is unacceptable that all this started because a journalist couldn't be bothered to clarify what he clearly did not understand. That's unacceptable both legally and ethically. So old Davey kind of responded to that.
Okay, what'd you do?
Well, let me pull it up here. Now, Mr. DeLong has not responded, but I said, at Tom DeLong, what's ethical about your PR department not granting interviews with TTSA Academy members unless it's Coast to Coast AM in the alternative media? I'd go through your PR guy, but he doesn't respond or denies the multiple requests. I think that's fair.
I do, since you've actually requested it.
Yeah.
He's complaining that nobody requests comments, and you're requesting a comment, not getting an answer. So I think it's reasonable.
Absolutely. But this gentleman named Andreas, he actually responded. He goes, maybe it's because they know, and they do, who constantly badmouths them. And I responded, that's the PR guy's job to sort out the good shows from the bad. I've been in media long enough to know how it works, and they're playing the system, not working it. And then he says, I can't speak for your good self, but why would they ever go back on a certain show, for example? And they mentioned that. That guy has burned so many bridges, it's beyond a joke. If the same critique was applied to cosmic disclosure, things might be different. I said, I can't answer that, but there is plenty of high-quality shows like ours and others, we deserve to ask quality questions to this group, as we have their supporters who listen to our shows. If the at TTSA Academy wants the money and support, come answer the questions. And then I said they've dodged the alternative media to answer the softball mainstream media questions, when the TTS Academy knows the big networks have always portrayed these stories as hokey and were caught off guard by the info. Therefore, no tough questions.
Well, and I think during our conversation, I wouldn't say that anybody bashed them. I would say that there were some questions that were asked that should be answered. When you clearly state that you're working on a project with the U.S. government and your objective is disclosure of UFO information, I think that that's a valid question to ask. I didn't say it was bad or good. I just said that it was questionable.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, right, everybody has a right to do whatever kind of business that they want, as long as it falls within the laws of the land. He's following the laws. He has the perfect right to solicit stock investment and purchase his stuff. You know, you may or may not like what he does, but, more power to him for trying to do it. I think that there are some questions about their motivations that are valid and are probably easily answered.
All right, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of a social experiment here, Olaf.
Okay.
All right? Because I want our audience to understand this. I'm going to send right now a media request to the stars. All right? I'm going to send one right now. All right? For December. So you can hear me typing.
I can hear you typing.
All right. So basically, what we do is we have a form that we send out, a request form that we send out, and I am typing it out right now. I've copied and pasted it. So I basically said, I know our listeners would love to tune in and hear your research regarding the Two to the Stars Academy and the findings of UAPs. I have several dates available in December, so if you have a preference for the day of the week, let me know. And I am sending it right now. And let's see, starting today, how long, if we even get a response. It is now sent. So here's our social experiment, because they have not been understanding. They have not been understanding in granting any media requests outside of coast to coast. Now, of course, if I was in their position, I would go on coast to coast because they're the big dogs. They're the big dogs.
They are.
Right? But
absolutely.
But when you're granting all the mainstream, why wouldn't you grant, and I'll mention some names here. Why doesn't Clyde Lewis get an interview? Why doesn't John B. Wells? Why don't we? What about Dave Schrader? Why don't we get to do it? There's some other hosts out there. Why don't we get to do it?
They're gaming the system, and it's their right. I mean, it's their absolute right to game the system, but they're gaming the system, and they're going on places, as you said, that will ask them softball questions that are, that are directed toward their success in the interview. And it's not based on asking questions that the audience necessarily actually wants to know. They're going to ask questions that are theatrical and titillating questions that will prompt responses that play to, the audience's beliefs. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. I mean, if that's the way they want to do it, that's their right. But,
sure.
It should be pointed out that there are other people who want to ask the same kinds of questions, but in addition to it, there are some interesting things in there that that prompt interesting questions. And if they looked at it objectively, if they came on, Spaced Out Radio and you said, hey, what's this thing about doing projects with the U.S. government? That's a very viable question, a very legitimate, valid question, and they could use it to hype something they're working on. It's not necessarily bad. It's just you're seeking more information.
Yeah. Well, we're going to run an experiment. Like I said, I have sent off that request, so everybody here knows that I've sent off the request. Okay, so this is October 16th, because I'm still on the West Coast, and we're 21 minutes away from pot being legal here. All right?
Yep.
So we're going to see how long it takes for them to respond back. That's what we're going to do.
I'd be very curious to know.
I will almost guarantee you we will not get a response. I'm putting my money on that.
I'm going to think positively.
Well, I'm not thinking negatively.
No, but I'm gonna put the positive mojo in the air that they're gonna respond and come on and you're gonna have a lively and interesting conversation.
Yeah,
that's what I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it would be lively. I mean, you have personal experiences with this stuff, so I mean, they're not going to come on and you're going to bash them for their beliefs. That's for sure. It's more, you have a series of valid questions about, certain projects that they're working on, and that's legitimate too. I mean, frankly, it'd probably get them more investors if they answered it. Who knows?
We'll see. Big news up here in Canada, my friend.
Huge
Big news.
The second country in the world to legalize weed.
I know.
I was impressed.
There's a lot of people up here who are high on life right now. I am not one of them. I got to tell you, I don't smoke pot. I love the smell, though. Love the smell. But I don't use it. I have a lot of friends who do. I have a lot of friends who use the CBD oils to help with their health problems.
Sure.
And I have to tell you, I am very, very happy for the people of Canada for, I think this is one of the only things, and granted the process is always ugly when anybody politically gets their fingers on it, okay? But I think this is such a smart and forward-thinking decision to bring marijuana legalized across Canada. What's your thoughts?
In places where it's been legalized, like Washington State, Oregon, they're rolling it out here, Colorado. I mean, it increases the tax base. They get tax money out of it, so it's a net benefit for everyone.
They're saying by 2020, Canada will benefit in $6.5 billion in tax revenue off of pot.
And by the way, I'm not a pot smoker. I don't even like the smell. I don't smoke this stuff, but I'm a proponent of it being legalized because it's not as damaging as it was portrayed when I was a kid, and and people enjoy it, and if it's used responsibly, and it increases the tax base, more money to schools, more money to infrastructure. I just see it as a net win, and you're decriminalizing it. So the only problem that you guys have up in Canada is that, here, we grow this stuff. I mean, there's huge tracts of land up north where they just have huge tracts of weed, and in Oregon and in Washington, they can grow it. But from what I was reading, I read a few articles about it, and it sounds like, they're predicting that very soon you're going to have a pot shortage.
I highly doubt that. British Columbia supplies the world, man. Supplies the world. I once talked to an RCMP officer, an undercover officer who would
we supply the world.
Yeah. Back in the day, I mean, this conversation's going back about 12, 15 years now. but I remember having a conversation with an undercover police officer who would travel to different companies to set up these giant busts. Like, we're not talking 100 pounds, we're talking 100 tons.
Sure.
And he was telling me what was happening is they were growing the marijuana here in British Columbia, loading it up on a ship, and then trading it straight across in international waters. And that's how all the cocaine and the heroin and the hash and everything got into Vancouver, was because they were trading it straight across for pot. That's how good BC Bud is. So I think we got enough. We can supply the world here, man. But you know what?
Yeah.
Outside of the criminal element, I think this is going to open up the minds to a lot of people, man, who may be against it, but it's also going to help with a lot of doctors now being able to prescribe it, because there is so much new research over the last couple of years, Olaf, on how it can benefit people who are suffering from everything from anxiety and depression to glaucoma.
Well, I know a guy who has insomnia, and he has some before he tries to go to sleep, and he falls asleep peacefully, and he had tried the pills, various types of sleeping pills, and he would always wake up groggy, but he has a little weed before he goes to bed, and he sleeps peacefully. I mean, there are a number of medicinal uses for this stuff, and I think that we've criminalized it for too long and avoided, doing the research on what it can actually be used for.
Well, let's hope that they do it. I would love to see more of it. I'd love to see it become legalized in the United States. I would love to see it become legalized around the world. I mean, we're not talking about an opioid here that has to go through a chemical type process. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. I totally agree. I mean, it is a recreational thing. The addiction rates on pot are very, very low. They do exist, but they're very, very low. It's never been shown to really be a gateway drug. A lot of the equivalencies, especially when we were voting whether to make it legal here, a lot of equivalencies were made to alcohol. Alcohol can be addictive. It can cause destructive behavior. It can be a gateway drug, so to speak. But, in general, it's not. Most people will go and have a few beers while they watch the game and, maybe get a little tipsy and have a little fun with it. But in general, it's a recreational substance. And I don't think anybody who philosophically supports the legalization of marijuana takes that extra step to say, well, we should legalize methamphetamines. I don't think anybody thinks that. But
you look at the damage fentanyl is causing.
Sure. And oxycodone and
Oxycontin,
Vicodin.
Exactly. Percocets.
Oh, yeah. And yeah.
I think the big turner will be when the pro sports leagues finally allow their players to stop using pill popping and using marijuana for pain relief. That's when I think it'll really go. I think sports is going to be absolutely huge in turning this entire process around in North America.
Well, I think Canada will probably lead that fight with the NHL, because you have very high profile hockey teams, and hockey is your national sport. If it's legalized, see, the difference is that here it's legal in California, but it's not legal in the United States per se, right? But in California you can get it, or in Oregon, Washington, or Colorado. But as a country, we haven't legalized it. In your case, you've legalized it coast to coast.
That's right.
From Newfoundland to British Columbia to the Yukon to everywhere in between. You can now get it. So that's a massive change. And like I said, the second country in the entire world to legalize it on a national level. That's impressive.
I like Derek's comment on Twitter. He goes, "Don't legalize marijuana. It could lead to horrible things like education funding." And then he shows, he put a fact sheet in Colorado that, you know, the marijuana revenue for 2017, 2018 for the education, state education funding, $5.6 billion. See, the problem, I think up here in Canada, the problem that we have is when our governments get money, they don't know where the hell to spend it. They give it away to other countries, and they, instead of putting it into infrastructure or healthcare or something along those lines, education. I mean, I hope the Canadian government's going to be smart about this, much like what the Colorado state government has tried to do.
Well, I mean, you're talking to somebody who lives in the United States. I mean, every time, you know, pretty much any state in the country gets money, they, you know, I mean, we had a huge, you know, scandal here probably a decade ago where the state government got a bunch of money and they, you know, they went and tried to build this massive database to unify a bunch of different services in the state. And, you know, it went into cost overruns and it ended up being like $1 billion. And, you know, they were, when you actually look at the cost sheets of how much they were paying for stuff, I mean, it was absurd. You know, they paid like four times what a business would pay for a database. They were paying like 3 times what the going rate for a DBA is. This piece of software was like 2x what it should have normally cost, you know, and there were cost overruns and delays, and then the system never worked right. Meanwhile, you know, we've got potholes in the streets and we've got, you know, congestion on the freeways and, you know, we've got bridges that with holes in them where the bolts are rusting out.
Yeah. Use the money properly. Use the money properly.
Absolutely. Earmark it. Actually set it aside and say, you know what, 1% is going to go to education, or 10% is going to go to education, 10% is going to go to infrastructure, 10% is going to go to a nationwide, you know, policy on homelessness. I mean, take the money and actually put it to good use, you know.
Yeah, but a government being smart like that and telling its citizens where the money is going, we could only dream, my friend. We got time for... Actually, we'll skip the thought of the day. Let's get to another story here, bud.
All right. Sorry, I closed that up because we were chit-chatting.
Oh, well, you don't have to. You can talk about it if you want.
No. This is a good one because I actually have an interest in this kind of stuff. This one's to be filed under Weird Places to Visit, and it comes from Ripley's, believe it or not, San Jose's giant size monopoly board. In San Jose, you can actually use, which is about an hour from me, you can actually use a get out of jail free card, and you can collect $200 when you pass go, and you can simultaneously own Park Place and Boardwalk. But you can only do this if you're lucky enough to be playing on the bigger than life-size Monopoly board at the San Jose's Discovery Meadow near the city's Children's Discovery Museum. The board game is the largest permanent version of Monopoly in the world, and it's sure to cause more than its fair share of family rivalries and arguments. It's 900 square feet, and each tile weighs 150 to 250 pounds. And so basically for $300, you and your friends can go down there and play Monopoly on a life-size board. And they have scaled pieces, and the $300 includes an announcer that keeps time and helps you move the game along. And they give you hats that have the little markers on them, like the race car, you know, or the shoe or whatever. And you wear a hat, and they give you giant dice, and you roll the dice, and you actually move around the Monopoly board.
Well, that's kind of cool, but how do you time out a game? Monopoly is like Risk, man. It can take forever.
I know. You know, the longest game, there's a game my friends and I used to play in high school called Axis and Allies.
Yeah.
The longest game we ever played of Axis and Allies was 14 hours. And we actually got so far in the rules that you go from being in World War II basically to being in today, because you can achieve technological advancement. And the only reason the game ended is because we all started nuking each other. But it took 14 hours to play it.
Oh, my friends and I were like Risk. I mean, if you could have a good game of Risk, man. And that's a problem with living up here is I don't know enough people up here to play, to get like 5 or 6 people together to start a game of Risk that may take, 24 hours to conclude. Because let's face it, it's so much more fun when you're not going after the biggest pieces or the biggest areas at the same time. I like the strategic part, man. I really do.
Oh yeah. Actually, when I was a kid, I used to play a game called Harpoon, and it was like a battle simulator. And
I'm going to get you to move your head. There's some clicking on your phone.
Sorry. There was it was a battle simulator, and it had little icons, and you would fight in the North Sea, and you had little icons for ships. But you could actually switch that so that the icons were NATO icons and make it hyper realistic.
Nice.
So I'm all over the strategy stuff. I love it.
I think it's absolutely great. I think it's absolutely great.
But it's apparently in the Guinness Book of World Records, so you guys can go down there and play some Monopoly. I'm going to visit. I like to visit weird places, so I'm going to go visit there.
Let's get to another story here. We got about 2 minutes.
Okay, well, this comes from multiple sources. There have been some very weird lights seen over China, and weird kind of like swirls and other stuff. And it's come out now that the Chinese people believe that the Chinese have been testing a hypersonic glider, which can be used for weapons delivery. So these weird swirls that people have been taking photos of and seeing in the sky, it's actually been attributed now to a Chinese black project, which it's a hypersonic glider plane, basically, that their rating can go between Mach 5 and Mach 15.
Nice.
How's that? Yeah.
My question to you is, being the secret space program guy, isn't it already here?
Oh, yeah. For sure. No, it's been here for decades. I mean, I think that's why we see a rise in UFO sightings, and I think that's why the whole Bigelow thing happened. Because his interactions with MUFON and other stuff, it shows that the DoD has an interest in UFO groups, and that dates back to the 60s when they were testing the A-12, and I think I mentioned it before, that the KGB had actually infiltrated UFO groups doing skywatches hoping to see the A-12, and the CIA had infiltrated the same groups to watch the KGB. So, no, I think they're definitely flying more and more stuff. I mean, I've seen, just where I live, I've seen 2 very odd things. One time I got it on video. Actually, twice I got it on video, and once I just saw it. But it was very odd, and it was very high altitude. In fact, it was so high altitude that I believe it like flared.
Wow.
Like when you see a satellite and the solar panels hit the sun.
Yeah.
And it kind of flared like that, and then it changed course. So I think what I was actually seeing is the reflection off the skin of the aircraft.
It's always a reflection. Always a reflection. Meanwhile, in Canada, there is a huge, huge increase in people going to Tim Hortons and eating Nanaimo bars tonight. Congratulations, Canada, on making pot legal.
3 minutes.
Hey, my friend, tell me where everybody can find Paranoia Magazine.
ParanoiaMagazine.com.
Perfect. And you can find The Encounter online on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter, or on the Spaced Out Radio website. Click on the news banner. It is right there. Mr. Olaf Phillips, we'll talk to you tomorrow night.
Absolutely. I'll be here.
We also want to say thank you to Daryl Owen and Russell Stater for coming on from Nor-Cal Squatchers, talking Bigfoot all night long. Tomorrow night on the show, Mike Morin is back from Haunted Crew of Canada, where we're going to talk about the ghosts of the Great White North. We're talking Haunted Barkerville. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, in your cars, at work, wherever you may be. A big hearty thank you to everybody in the chat room on Spreaker. Great questions tonight. Thanks to everybody on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook, and everybody on Rev Radio. Thanks for sharing the show, telling your friends, doing your part to make us bigger and better every single night, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night, everyone.